Okay, welcome to our Universal Design Fast Facts series. My name is Khalil Iksher. I am the Assistive Technology Specialist. And here with me in the participants is Katie Monti. She is the ADA Project Coordinator at the Office of Disability Services. Uh,
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. So the Universal Design Fast Facts series, it is a series that we started about a year. This is our 11th session, and the title, as you can see, it is Accessible Tables. But I would like to let you know how this started. We used to do about 6 hours of workshop, and we are still doing that. It is a hands-on on computer, but of course with COVID-19, we couldn't do it this semester. We were supposed to do that in July, but anyway, 6 hours was difficult for many participants to have commitment for 6 hours. And it is like either one day, which we did this semester, or in 2 different days in 2 different weeks, like Monday and Monday, something like that. So we thought, okay, let's break that down to multiple sessions. And this way we have like a focused session that talks about specific area of accessibility. And today we'll be talking about accessible tables. Um, so the objective of this session, we expect that by the end of the session that you'll be able to create tables that are accessible. And we'll be able to show you how to do that in Microsoft Office. So you'll be able to do it in Microsoft Office and in Google Document and also in Canvas. And this is our agenda. So we'll talk about table accessibility, how to use HTML coding if you are involved with HTML coding, some of the elements that are important when it comes to HTML coding. We will talk about using the creating table using Microsoft Office 2019. We will also talk about creating tables using Google Documents and using Canvas, and then we'll conclude. So as an introduction, people present their data using multiple ways, one of which is using a table. And when you create a table, you really put information in each cell. And to understand the cell, you need to look at the row header and the row column. For example, if we look at this table that we have in this slide, we'll see, for example, a program like MOM starts at 8:30 in CBS channel. So this is how you can relate and make sense of this table. So we can see here a key factor in tables, which is the row header and the row column. So, so how can we make this accessible? We have some points here, bullet points. First, try to avoid merging cells. Okay. The screen reader, of course, screen reader is a software that is used mostly by blind. It will explain everything on the screen, on the table as well, if it was prepared very well. So when it comes to a merged cell, it will say, for example, low vision, assuming low vision expands 2 columns. Okay, so that's kind of confusing. So it will read it, explain it, but it will end kind of confusing. So we advise to avoid merging cells. Okay. Now, the second bullet point, make sure you don't complex and use nested tables. The table you see here is a nested table. You can see nested table is a table inside a table. So the low vision and the blind should come on the left side as a column header, and it will be simplified this way, and it will be read better. So this kind of tables are not accessible, as just to let you know. So the table you see here is not accessible because it has a nested table inside a table. Uh, Next, make sure you specify the header row and header column. And as I explained, this is the key factor of accessibility in a table. Um, Another hint is to add a caption, okay, like the one we see here, table 1, disability definitions and accessibility hints with nested table. Um, so this normally caption is visual for everybody, okay, whether the student with this is blind, with a disability or no disability. And normally it just explains what's coming, what is the table, just a hint of what's going on. Uh, Then, of course, we recommend that you color your table, especially the header row and header column, so it is visually more appealing and more readable. Also, we recommend that you alternate the colors between rows. Like the one we see here, you can see that there's a light gray, green and darker green just below when it says hearing loss in the row that of the hearing loss and deafness. We'll see that the color has changed. So if you have a larger table, uh, when each row has a different color, it will be easier to read and track the information as you go along with the row. By the way, you can interrupt me at any moment if you have any question. We welcome you at any moment. All right, so next, if you are using an HTML coding, the key element is th. Th explains that or describes that this cell is a table header. Okay. Then you need to specify if it is a row or column by adding a scope, which is so it is th, then scope colon, and you specify row or column. And we provided here a hyperlink where you can find examples, very useful examples on how to make or specify the header row and header column. Also, we recommend that you use caption. Caption element, it's just like the one above here, just table one, disability definitions and accessibility. So it will explain, it will be visible for everybody, and it will just explain what's that. It's just a title for that table. There is a nice also element in HTML. It's called summary. Now, when using summary, you need to explain something. It is visible only for screen reader, for someone who's blind. So you need to describe something that people see, but the blind doesn't see. As an example, you could say that this table consists of, for example, 7 columns and 10 rows, something like that. So it will help visually understand how much big is the table. Okay, so it is also recommended when you use both, you don't use the same phrase for the caption and the summary. So the caption is just the title of the table. The summary explains some of the detail that people see for someone who's blind. Remember that and keep it in mind. And we provide here hyperlink to have more information and examples, HTML coding examples, and how to apply them while coding. So let's start with accessible table using Microsoft 2019. When you open a new file, and we will show you some after the presentation part. So you start creating a table, and that will create two ribbons, design and I forgot the other one, but the design is the most important one. From the design, you will specify the header row and header column, and we have a screenshot just at the bottom. And also you will be able, it will allow you to specify the colors. Of course, these colors are prepared by Microsoft, so just to make it easy for you. And we can see that, let me just count from 1, 2, okay, there's plain tables, then grid. The grid is 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one is the one that has the header row and header column. And again, from table to table, it's just really different, depend on what you are presenting. Probably you don't need the header column. Probably you don't need the header row. At least one of them, and better both of them if it makes sense. Depend really on the table you are structuring. Okay, and of course from there you can color. Okay, choose the color that suits you or meets your needs. I'll move on with the next. Okay. Now in Google Document, what I noticed based on testing that I did, that when you create a table, automatically the header row will be specified as a header row, and the header column will be specified as a header column. But they don't have the colors, so it will be just a plain text. Therefore, you will need to specify the color. Unfortunately, Google Document does not provide colors. So the idea here, or the only solution, is to create your table using Google Sheet, then copy it, paste it in Google Document. And you can see here the steps. So you go to Google Sheet, you create a table, Then you go to format and you click on alternate colors. And when you click alternate color, it will give you the alternating color window. You select one of these colors, one of these. In this screenshot, I selected this one, the green color. And you can change the color by clicking on this. It is actually a list, and it will give you additional colors, or you can combine a newer one. Okay, and you click done, and this will give you a nice color table. Then you select all from Google Sheets, copy it to Google document, and there you go. You will have it, and we'll give you an example after the presentation. If there is no question, I'll just move on. Now, when it comes to Canvas, you also can create a table inside the Canvas. Like you start, for example, a page or maybe a header or something. The point, you will see the HTML window. Normally it has all of these codes for bold, italic, underline, and this is called HTML editor. And you click on the table, and you click again table, and you create your own table. Then you need to specify the header row and header column and give a caption. And based on my testing and based on my experience, I found that it is easier to click an icon. It's called the accessibility checker. When you click on the accessibility checker, it will find that you are missing a caption and will allow you to enter it. Then it will find that you are missing the header row and header column, and it will allow you to specify it. So if you want to do that manually, it will take you a longer time, just as a hint. Okay, so using the accessibility checker and a caption, I couldn't find a way to add a caption except by using the accessibility checker, just to let you know. So you click on the accessibility checker and add the caption. Now, for the table, you can go cell by cell. You do it manually, cell by cell, and you click the table icon, cell properties. Then specify that this cell is the cell type as seen in the screenshot, that it is a header, and you specify the scope, which is row or column, depend on your table. So this is how you do it in Canvas. If there's no question, I'll just move on. And this actually concludes our first part, the presentation. Just to remind you, specify always the header row and header column, and this is what makes your table accessible. This is the key value. Like if the color are missing or something, this will make your table weak, but the key here is really header row and header column, because at the end you want to explain the table, you want to explain each cell in the table, and the only way is to specify the header row and header column. Also, and again, when you specify header row and header column, that is mostly for someone who's blind. Now, when we think universal design, so everyone can benefit, first make it a simple. Okay, the simpler, everyone will benefit from the simple table. If it is complicated, it will just be confusing for end users, regardless of their abilities. Also use colors. Colors will make your table more appealing, visually more acceptable, and it will be easier to track the information. Also, you can alternate between rows with different background colors, and this will make it easier to track the information, especially if you have a long or wider table. And this is it for our workshop today.